The year is 2024, and there are still so many people that don't know what click tracks, backing tracks, whatever you want to call them are, and I think it's ridiculous. I just wanted to do like a little ranty video because yet again, backtracks, not backtraps, are being brought into the news. Recently, a band called Sleep Token had to play a few shows without their guitarist and bassist, who both fell sick to COVID or something like that. So rather than canceling the shows, they continued to play the shows with the guitar and bass backtracked, which of course caused every boomer online and every metal news site to report on this as if it's actual news that matters. And now I'm talking about it, so maybe I'm part of the problem, I don't know. But anyways, I just wanted to make like a kind of like ranty video about this because it's something that I see happen every single time the backtrack thing is brought up in conversation. And I think that the majority of people don't even understand what backtracks actually are. If you're going to hate on them, I want you to at least understand what it is you're hating, you know what I mean? So this video isn't to convince you whether you should or should not like backtracks. I don't personally care if you like backtracks or not. If you don't like them, definitely don't come see my band because we 100% cannot play live without them. And that's fine if you don't like that. It really doesn't bother me at all. All I want to do is explain what backtracks actually are and why they are important for a lot of bands and why they can't even play live without them. So I play in a deathcore band called Carcosa, and like I kind of briefly mentioned there, we use backtracks every single night and our set is literally impossible without them. If for some reason our laptop dies or gets stolen, well, we have a backup, but if the backup gets stolen, we literally cannot play, okay? So let's just put that out there. And that's not the case for every band. There are varying degrees of backtrack reliance, I guess we'll say. Some bands like ourselves cannot play without them. Some bands just use them as a little bit of extra oomph for their live sound, and some bands just use them to keep time and don't actually have any samples that are. So there's a ton of different examples for what you can do, but what I am going to do in this video is explain how my band uses them and show you actually what is going on my computer so you can actually see and hear what a backtrack does. And we're going to go through a couple of different varieties of how they can be used to different extremes, I guess you could say. So yeah, very informal video. I apologize if I'm rambling and ranting and some of this doesn't make any sense, but I'm just going to go for it because it's something that I think needs to be talked about. So let's do it. Okay, so we're switching over to my computer view. This is how you set up a backtrack, or how you can set up a backtrack. This is how my band does it. So I'm the one that makes all the backtracks in our band, at least at this point in time. So as you can see here, we have our entire set laid out. So we are playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 songs in our set, which is a total of 24 minutes. So first and foremost, right off the bat, that is a useful feature of a backtrack. You know exactly how long your set is going to be every single night, because once you hit the spacebar button to play your set, that's how long it is. You can't be longer than this because everything runs on rails, so to speak. Like, as in, you click play, it does the thing, you're done, get off stage, right? Which is very important when you're playing tours like we do, where, you know, we're the opener or the second band, where we only have a 20 to 30 minute set and maybe 10 minutes to change over, as in get all of our gear on and off stage. It makes things a lot faster and easier. So point number one of why backtracks are great: there's no risk of running over or under because of that reason. So anyways, like I was saying, we have 7 songs in this set list. There's a lot of stuff going on in the backtrack, which I'm sure people will already be upset about, but we're going to talk about it all right now. So in my band, we do not have a bass player, so the first thing in our backtrack is a bass guitar. What I did is I actually tracked all the bass myself, which you can see over here. So I recorded bass. I pretty much just played through the set in not a one take, but like as close to a one take as I could. Recorded the whole set as if it was a bassist playing along with us, and then that is running in the tracks. So when we play live, there is a bass guitar that sounds like this. Right, you get the point. So that is going on up here. Next up, we have something called a guitar backing bus, and this basically is all of the additional guitar effects that aren't really playable live, or they're just like extra features and stuff like that that, you know, don't really make sense to play live because we'd rather be doing other stuff. So if we expand this bus, you can see that there are 3 tracks here. There's a couple of ambient layers, and then there's a couple little scratchy effects that happen on top of it, like so. Right, creepy ambience. And then there's also lots of like weird little stutter effects like this. And like we are playing that at the same time, but it's just emphasized in the backtrack so it sounds cooler basically. And again, there's stutter effects all over the place in other songs. Stuff like that. You get the point. Moving on, next up we have a production bus, which looks like this. There are 4 tracks in this instance, but obviously you can have as many or as few as you want. This one is always the funniest one to me when people bitch about this, because I don't really know what people want. Like, do you want us to tour with a 15-piece symphony orchestra behind us? Like, obviously that's not going to happen. So all that stuff is right here, and it sounds like this. So you get the point. All that extra stuff is in there. So when you combine all of that stuff, what the front of house is what it's called is getting, aka what you are hearing as the audience, is these 3 layers at the same time. So if we solo all 3, it would sound something like this. So obviously it's ridiculous and there's a ton of stuff going on, but as you may or may not notice, there's no drums, there's no vocals, there's no guitars, right? The other thing that's going on is of course a click track, and you as the audience are not going to ever hear this, obviously, because it would be very annoying to listen to. But what we have are something called in-ear monitors. So it's literally, if you ever watch any musician play live, if they have these basically earbud looking things that wrap around their ears and go down the back of their shirt, that is an in-ear monitor. So what that does is it lets us hear ourselves and also personalize our mix, which is very interesting because every single member in our band can be hearing something entirely differently. Like me, for example, I like to hear our vocalist and the backtracks and the bass guitar, but our vocalist, on the other hand, doesn't want to hear anything. The only thing he's listening to is actually the album version of the song. So he has no idea what I'm doing on stage. If I play something differently, if I fuck something up, he's never gonna know, he just goes. So you can customize your own mix accordingly, which is really nice. And in that mix is a click track so that you have an easier time staying in time with the song because you're hearing a metronome all the time, which is very annoying, but it sounds like this. Very exciting, I know. So that's like a demonstration of what a backtrack actually sounds like and how most bands will use it. There are varying degrees of this, of course, like I said. So for example, if a band only has one guitarist and they have like 3 guitar parts, sometimes maybe those guitar parts will be added to the backing track. Or if a band does have a bassist, maybe they won't have bass here, so on and so forth. You get it? Maybe they have a keyboardist. Maybe they don't need this at all. Maybe they only need a click. My point is all these layers are here and can be customized to any band's liking, and they probably do something similar to this. Now there's also an extra feature that we personally use that a lot of bands probably don't need this, but what we do live as well is we actually don't touch any of our pedals or foot switches ever. We actually have everything synced to the backtrack, so it's actually controlling our pedals for us, so we never have to step on any pedal. I understand some people don't necessarily like this because they like the feeling of playing with pedals, but we just have never really been that way. Also, there are some combinations of things going on with our pedal that are physically impossible to play, like when it's hitting the whammy pedal fully up and hitting the whammy button and twisting a knob and hitting another button all at the same time within a 16th note. That's not really possible, obviously, so we kind of have to program it this way, unless I wanted to hire like 3 people to just sit at my pedal board and press things, but like that's stupid. Why would I do that? So anyways, you can see all that on this track here, which has all these things called PC or program changes. So every single time you see that little PC note, that's what that means. It means that a MIDI note is being sent to our pedals, which is telling the pedals what to do, and it happens in real time. Same with these ramps. This is basically telling my whammy pedal to ramp up or down accordingly. So again, that's all happening in real time, so I don't actually have to touch my pedals ever, which is great because these pedals are nowhere near me. They're like at the back of the stage inside a rack that I couldn't even touch even if I wanted to. Okay, last but not least, we're going to talk about the optional things, and I think this is what people think a backtrack is and where some of the controversy comes from. So there's these red tracks at the bottom of our session here, and as you can see, by default, they're always muted. And what these are the drums, the vocals, and the guitars. So aka this is the stuff that our band is actually playing live. It's in here because we have the option of unmuting it. So let's say, for example, our vocalist gets really sick or gets held at the border or has a family emergency and has to fly home. Rather than canceling the entire rest of the tour, we can just still play a show without vocals and either choose to play instrumentally, or we can unmute his vocal track right there, and now boom, his vocals are still coming out. Some people might not like that, but in my opinion, it makes much more sense than canceling a show or canceling a tour, especially when you consider that the upfront cost to even go on a tour is like $20,000 to $30,000 before you even get to your first show. So canceling shows because somebody gets sick just isn't really an option. This has become much more commonplace since COVID because obviously the COVID restrictions were so strict, and if anyone had COVID, you had to cancel your show or drop that member. So having basically backups of every member is just a smart thing to do. Whether you agree with that or not, that's just facts, and a lot of bands will do it this way as well, which again is what Sleep Token is doing, which I guess is what caused the most recent, thing online. So for example, if I was sick and I cannot play live, we could unmute my guitar and I would just not play live at all, and then the backtrack would sound like this. Obviously that's not ideal, and obviously we would rather never have to do this, but in an emergency, that option is there for us. Also, the reason that this is here, which is important, is again, like I said, our vocalist doesn't actually want to hear what I'm playing on stage ever, so he can actually choose to listen to the album version of the guitars no matter what. Even if they're muted for you and you don't hear it, he still can, because again, we can all personalize our own in-ear monitor mixes. So I think that pretty much sums it up. I think that's everything I wanted to explain, and if nothing else, hopefully this gives you a better understanding of what a backing track actually is and how it works. Okay, so that's gonna do it for this video. Hopefully you learned something in this video, whether you still hate backtracks or maybe now you like them, or maybe now you wanna learn how to use them in your band. All I really care about is that you learned something about how they actually work. If you still wanna hate on them, even though you know how they work, I don't really care. That is your opinion. Again, please don't come see my band live if you hate them. With that being said, I guess now is a good time to shamelessly self-promo that my band Carcosa is going on tour next year in February and March. We are touring Europe for the first time ever. The dates are on the screen. We're touring with Suffocation, a legendary death metal band. It's gonna be a really good time. So come out and see us and listen to our backtracks live, I guess. I don't know.